Okay, this video is going to be the CRAYON version of GPS for bowlers because they're not understanding, right? They're not getting the simple concepts I've tried to, really show in spades in my past couple of videos. I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to make this as short as I can, right? This video. This is what they're not understanding. Here is a globe. Here is 4 satellites. These 4 satellites, right, using the distance between them and a receiver on the surface of their globe, right, they use that as a radius and create a sphere. This is what the claim, right? What this does is it creates, right, circles intersecting. This is what they want you to take in. If you're a bowler, right, they want you to take in this nonsense. And these 3 circles where they intersect, and there'll be a 4th one brought in for extra accuracy, they say, for timing and different things. And that then will give you, the receiver, its position, right? Here you have it. They're trying to say this gives the receiver the position. No. Right? It's correct and incorrect. And I'll show why. See, this is the problem. How can the receiver, which is here, ever know its own coordinates or find its own coordinates if the only coordinates it has are the coordinates of the satellites up in space, right, within their paradigm, right? So how can it know that if it does? See these circles here, right? These are based off of intersections. These are actually pre-assumed to be spherical caps, not circles, because you can't have circles on a globe. And it's very interesting that they're showing it here on a flat plane, because that's the only way this can work. What the receiver needs, right, is it needs to know other coordinates connected to the satellites on the surface of Earth, right? We're placing ourselves on a globe for this, but it doesn't have any coordinates of these circles. If they're just a radius between this satellite and it, if that's what's creating, and they're not even showing it here, they're not even showing it like that. Because these 4 lines, if what they were showing was the correct way, these 4 lines would be meeting at the receiver, but it's not. These 4 lines are meeting at the center of each one of the circles. So what are they? What is this point? Right? This is not just some random spherical cap. This is not just some random spherical cap that shows up on the surface of or intersects the sphere. This is not what that is. These are the subpoints of each of the satellites that I spoke about. The sub-satellite point, that's what they are. And these are the coordinates, because they are points on the surface of Earth. These are the coordinates that the receiver gets. But the receiver cannot find its distance between itself and those coordinates on the surface of a sphere. As I showed in spades, it can't be done. It requires at least a flat plane to do what they're saying. It can't be done over a spherical surface. That's the point. So when they're trying to tell you that these 4 intersecting circles somehow gives the receiver its coordinates, it doesn't. The satellites do not give the receiver its coordinates. The satellites give the receiver the sub-satellite coordinates. It then has to find its distance, right, between it and those points, right? And it can only do that in any way on a flat plane, right? Now, if I have to go by their methods, it'll be a flat plane using angles, right? Right angle triangles to be precise. But the point being is that none of this will work on the surface of a sphere. Now, this is not, as I said in the past videos, this is not how GPS actually works, how it's actually done. I'm going to show that again. I've shown it in my presentation last year. I'm going to show it again and show how it works and what it does, right? How GPS is basically mostly just 2-dimensional, right? They can add in a 3rd dimension of elevation, and that's because the receiver has access to mapping, right? But it gets a 2-dimensional coordinate, and it will know from the mapping its 3-dimensional elevation, right? But that's not important right now. What's important is that these intersection things here happening with this sphere are not what's happening over here. What's happening over here is their subpoints. And the receiver must find its distance between these subpoints to try and find out where these circles will intersect. The only way for it to do any of this is on a flat plane. It can't do with the way they're trying to frame it. It can't do that on a sphere, and it can't just use 4 random circles. So if these are 4 random, let's say these are 4 random spherical caps, how does the receiver know where the center of that spherical cap is? How does it work out where the center of that spherical cap is? How does it know how big each spherical cap is? Right? It knows how big it is from, if you go by their story, because of the distance between it and the satellite. But that doesn't mean anything because it doesn't have any coordinates. It needs coordinates. To work out its own coordinates, it needs other coordinates. That's how it does what it does. So if it just has 4 random circles, or 4 random, spherical caps, right, intersecting, that doesn't mean anything. You could have 900 spherical caps intersecting. That won't tell it where it is. It needs to know the coordinates of the center of those and a way of finding its distance between the distance between it and them points, and then working out where it is based on those distances. It can't do that, right? Because technically, if you go by what they try and claim, technically the radius of by what they claim, the radius is the distance between the receiver and the satellite, right? So there's no guarantee that the intersection that they show over here happening, that's going to match the distance that the intersection, let's say the spherical caps that will be created. There's no guarantee any of them are going to be equal what will be the distance between the receiver and the subpoint. So the receiver can't work off of 4 random spherical caps. That it doesn't know any. It doesn't know. It only knows the size of the sphere that's being created between due to a radius between it and the satellite. It doesn't know how big. It doesn't know how big these circles are, and even if it did, it didn't mean that because it doesn't have its own coordinates, so it don't know what coordinates they're meeting. So the only information it can be given that actually matters is the coordinates of the subpoints, the subsatellite points here. It needs those coordinates to work out where it is. And as I showed in the past couple of videos and in my presentation last year, it can't work out the distance to those points on a sphere. Ballers, right? This is the CRAYON version. You're being gaslit, right? You're backing up and supporting people who are gaslighting you. None of this can be done on a sphere. It can't be done. None of this exists on these satellites up in the middle of an entropy violation. None of that happens. But the point is that even within your own story concerning it, it can't be done. If I try and make this happen on a sphere, it can't be done. 4 random spherical caps where there's no coordinates given mean nothing to the receiver. The receiver needs the coordinates of the subpoints, and it needs to find its distance between the distance between it and those points, and it can't do it on a sphere as I showed. Now, on to the next section. The claim that there's no compasses in GPS receivers, right? So that's not a compass then. That's not a compass. Just make this a bit bigger. That's not a compass then. That's not a compass then. Sorry. That's not a compass then. That's not a compass then. That's not a compass then. Yeah. Yes, every GPS receiver has a compass. It's a microsensor compass. Most of them have what's known as a microsensor compass. Some of them may have, do have, I think I remember reading before, they do have magnetic compasses, but the microsensor compass uses the magnetic field of the Earth. Right? I think that's the proper name for microsensor compasses. But the whole point is that they are compasses, right? And they do use the magnetic field of the Earth. So that means GPS knows azimuth, like I said, right? And all the ballers said, no, it doesn't use azimuth. It doesn't use elevations. It doesn't use anything else. There's none of that happens. It just uses 4 distances to 4 satellites. That's all it uses. And I pointed out, no, that's bonehead. right? That's a bonehead rebuttal. You don't understand what's happening. You're not giving it any thought as to how what you're claiming can't be done, right? It's not using 4 spherical caps. It's using 4 circles, right, and triangles, right angle triangles, based off of distance between, right, this is within that claim, distances between it and those subpoints within that claim. And the only way you can do that within that claim is on a flat plane. Now, in reality, it's doing something a little bit different, which I will show in the future. But if within that claim, the only way that can work is on a flat earth. It can't work on a globe. None of this can work with your globe. I can make this work on a flat plane, but you can't make that work on a globe with these 4 spherical caps of random sizes that don't mean anything to the receiver, because the receiver doesn't have any coordinates to work off of. The receiver needs the coordinates of the 4 subpoints and its distance to those points. Thing you can't get, once again, on a sphere. Now, on to the next part. There is no elevation angles, there's no angles, the receiver doesn't know angles. See this area here, I'll just show you. See this area, this is called the mask angle, right? This is a mask angle. It affects the satellite the vertical dilution of position, right? It's called the mask angle. All receivers have a mask angle. They know what angles are. They must know the angle. They have to be able to know what angle the claimed signal is coming from. This is something that they have to know. This is something that they do know, and it's not even denied, except for by bonehead ballers who don't know what they're talking about. There's just four distances to 4 point random points in the sky. That's all it needs, and magic happens. It's just magic. Magic is all. It's only all that's needed is magic, according to the ballers. All that's needed is magic. Next one, right? Masking satellites below a given horizon angle prevents the receiver from including them in calculations. SV2 is below and is rejected. So it's rejecting, let's say for the SV1 is above the mask angle and it's used. That means it's using a horizontal plane and an angle of that horizontal plane. Right? That's what it's doing. Right? It does know angles. It has to know angles to know what the mask angle is. Now, this is not some information I came across recently. This was in my presentation, and I've spoken about it, I think, years ago. But the ballers seem to be unable to figure out what this is. They're unable to ever come across this in reality. And here's the next one, right? There's a receiver, kind of like the pictures I showed a minute ago, isn't it? Kind of like that. Right? There's your azimuth. There's the angles. Right? There's the receiver. I'm going to go into it a bit. Right? There's the receiver. Do you know what I mean? This is the crayon version for these people. They're so stupid. They need a crayon version. They can't figure out these simple things themselves. They're just going to read any nonsense off the internet and go, yes, internet says this, that means it works. Do you know what I mean? No, it doesn't. That doesn't mean anything. That means you've been told a story. If you used your brain, if you had one, you would use it and figure out, no, that's a lot of rubbish, it can't work. But you don't use it. You don't use your brains. The flat earthers, I'm not saying every flat earther is a genius. There's a lot of flat earthers out there who are pretty stupid. But if you find me the stupidest baller and the stupidest flat earther, I guarantee you that stupidest flat earther is much smarter than that stupid baller. I guarantee you that. Right? If I had to put the two of them in a battle for who's the smartest, I'd definitely put my money on the flat earther. Would it? Because at least the flat earthers, at least they're going to be asking questions. They're going to go, how does this actually work? Well, how do you know that what they told you is true? Things like that. At least the flat earther will have some kind of critical thought. The baller will just be, it says this, so I do it. That's it. I don't know anything other than that. All I know is doing what I'm told by Google. That's it. That's all they know. So for all the bozo ballers out there, this is the crayon version, especially for you. And I have citations and all kinds of things, but there's no point. Here you go. This is it. This is the crayon version. Citations and stuff like that. It's far too complicated for the crayon version. Many handheld GPS receivers more or less support viewing the satellite information On some devices, they show up as a series of signal bars. On other devices, two concentric circles are used to depict the Earth and the orbit, and the satellites are plotted on that graph. These graphics are okay, but neither intuitive nor informative. Now, some of these are off of phones and different things, but the point is that I think this one isn't. This one's off a phone. This one isn't. The point is that they have sky plots, right? They have to know, right? These are called sky plots, right? This is supposed to show where, let's say this is the receiver, it's supposed to show where the satellites are in relation to the receiver, kind of thing, right? That means, and this is north here, has a north here, south, east, west, right? South, east, west. That means that's a compass, Rose. That would mean azimuth. That would mean, my God, the GPS receivers might be able to determine azimuth. They might actually have compasses that can determine these things. No way. Because they'd have to know where all the positions of all these things are. Now, I have more I could show. I have a load more I could show, but I just don't want to make this any longer than it is. I have other things. I have citations and different things talking about, right? And a lot of the time they're trying to hide. No matter what you ask, they're trying to hide. You can ask Google the same question 50 different times, it's the same question 50 different ways, and it'll keep coming back with the same generic nonsense. Oh, GPS just does this. You have to dig in deep, and then you find the things that you need to find. And sometimes they're only just things like this, where they're kind of giving a little acceptance of what's happening. Do you know what I mean? Here, look, this is what GPS, this is what, in the end of the day, what they have to do to calculate things. They have to claim that GPS is using azimuth and elevation. Do you know what I mean? They have to, like, the position of satellites are represented by elevation and azimuth angles, sentences in the NME specs, which are these, in short, azimuth tells us blah, 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 blah. Holding a GPS receiver and a compass, turning around from north and raising the head, one can eye into the approximate direction of the satellite in the sky. Yeah, the compass in the GPS receiver. You know, it's nonsense. Anyway, there's not more we need to go through here. I think we've gone through all we need to know. These people, they need to be spoon-fed, and they need drawings with cartoons with crayons. This is what they need. They're not getting it. No matter what I said in my last videos, I just had the same generic comments from the same bozos, the same guys. You just can't work out even. It just couldn't be any more simple. The flat earthers got it immediately, but no, not the ballers. No, we still don't get it. You know what I mean? They just can't get it. They can't get these simple concepts. The receiver requires coordinates on the surface of Earth, and to be able to find out its position in relation to those coordinates. It's not getting that from just a distance to some satellite in the sky, making some spherical cap of size means nothing because it doesn't have any coordinates to go along with it. Without the coordinates of the subpoints, the receiver is not finding its location, and it can't find the distance to those subpoints on your globe. So no matter what way you twist or turn it, the way it's even claimed that GPS works can only work on a flat plane, even just by the official claims. And as I said, it's not the correct way it actually does work. But there are official claims. It can only work on a flat plane. I've not more to say about it. Thanks for watching.